Okay, let's get into part 2 of this week's lecture. So let's focus on Easy Writer, the reading you had assigned from that this week. And I mentioned to you before that these two textbooks, Easy Writer and From Inquiry to Academic Writing, think of them more like handbooks or technical guides than a textbook in the traditional sense. This is not reading for the sake of being able to explain to me the parts of the cell wall that are outlined like in a biology chapter where you have to be able to cite back specific things that are said in a text, but instead they are tools to help you. So Easy Writer is more like the technical part where it gives you the steps on this is how you do these things, and then From Inquiry to Academic Writing is more like the application of now that you have these things, what do you do them and how do you situate your understanding to best be successful in the application of these thoughts or these ideas and these frames, right? Okay, so we talked about From Inquiry to Academic Writing. The rest of your, and we talked about CARS a little bit, CARS model. The other tools that you will need this week in order to be successful moving forward is now that you have to do research and find your secondary sources, you're going to need to be able to use the UCF library. So again, secondary sources and primary sources for this class are secondary sources are the articles that establish the other voices in the academic conversation right now. They're the other experts in the field, but there are, in terms of sources, they are the proof of what other people are saying on your given topic or around your given topic. Primary research for this class is going to be the actual artifacts that you'll be conducting your analysis and observations on. So you started that with the genre analysis worksheet. You gathered probably your first sampling, and you're going to expand upon that based on whatever it is that you're looking at and find more samples to help build your argument as we move into the academic article. So in order to establish your existing conversation, you have to do secondary research, you have to find those other sources. That's what we're focusing on right now, because as I mentioned in the other part of the lecture, in order to best frame and construct the findings of your research, you first have to understand what the conversation is so you know how to engage in that conversation without just being that person that like shouts out a non sequitur whenever they have a chance when a group of people are talking. You don't want to be that person that's just like, I had a sandwich, and everyone's like, cool. That's not what you want to do. Instead, you want to be able to say, we're talking about lunch, and it's interesting because I had a sandwich earlier today, that kind of a thing, right? All right, so that was a terrible example, but I think you understand the point I'm trying to make. So first, you're going to be doing the introduction to library research strategies, and it's to help you get to know how to use the UCF library website. It's a tool that I wish I had had more exposure to in terms of help and guidance and experience as an undergraduate, and I don't feel like I even began to become good at using the UCF library website until I was a graduate student, and I think it's just because I didn't have enough practice and enough exposure to different techniques. So the Library Research Strategies web course that you'll do is made through the library, and it's going to give you an overview of the library in general. The library database scavenger hunt that I've created for you is to help give you a glimpse as to how you might go about some alternate lines of approaching finding your sources. So chances are, as I explained, you're not going to find sources that are specifically talking about like that one thing that you're looking at. So maybe you're looking at the social influences on children's cereal boxes from the 1950s until now, right? Maybe one morning you were eating breakfast and you thought, I always read the cereal box. I've read the cereal box my entire life, and I wonder what goes into, like, what is the reader expectation on the cereal box? These are conversations you might actually start to have with yourself once you're exposed to the idea that these genres are around us all the time and they're such a part of our lives, and there are forces that are shaping them and guiding them. So maybe you decide that you want to start looking at Fruit Loops is your favorite, no judgment. And so you decide you want to look at Fruit Loops boxes since their inception, and I'm just going to make up a date here, since 1957. That sounds like a good year for Fruit Loops. I don't know. It might be later, it might be earlier. I have no idea. So you decide you're going to look at a cereal box from every single decade from when they were created until now and see what has changed and what stayed the same and what conclusions you can make about reader expectations based on the way that they're presenting their product through their cereal box. Because cereal boxes, if you think about it, they're designed to be read. You know, I haven't looked at one lately, but growing up, there was always on kids' cereal boxes, at least, there were games and puzzles and things that you would do, like looking at the cereal box. So they're meant to be engaged with. Now, keep in mind, we're not looking at this from an advertising perspective. We're looking at this from a writing studies perspective. So instead, we're considering the message, how the message is shaped, how the message is delivered, and what we can conclude about the intended audience based on that message, right? So you go into the library database and you're like, cereal boxes in the keyword search, and either a million things come up and none of them have to do with your topic, or nothing comes up. One or the other can happen. It's usually like maybe you find 5 sources or 2 sources that have cereal boxes in the title. So you have to start thinking about, well, how else could I go about finding cereal box or research on cereal boxes in the library database? And I want you to think about a skill that you're probably already pretty well versed in. And that is when you're Google searching something, you're pretty good at changing your search terms to best get the result that you're looking for. Whether it is song lyrics, or it is, you know, where is the closest taco restaurant, or what is Einstein's theory of relativity. I have no idea what your YouTube or your Google search history is, and I'm not judging you in any way, shape, or form. That's the beauty of Google, is you can look up anything from the most, mundane or trivial to the most important thing. You know, Google's got your back. So Google Scholar, if you're familiar with it, you can use a little bit, but really it's important for you to understand how to use the UCF library website, which is why this is a part of this course. Trust me when I say I really, really wish I had more strength in this, because, like I said, researching takes a lot of time. It is looking for a handful of needles in a field of haystacks. There are so many potential sources, so many possible things that could relate to what it is that you need, and allow yourself a lot of time when it comes to finding the sources for your annotated bibliography. And since time is one of the things we don't have an excess of in this particular, this term being 6 week, make sure you're allowing yourself enough time to start finding your sources. So those 2 assignments should help give you some ideas. Look to Easy Writer. It does have some helpful suggestions in terms of how to be a more effective researcher. And interestingly, I'd like you to consider too the difference between scholarly and popular, because for this assignment, you have to find scholarly sources. That means academic, peer-reviewed publications. And there's a reason for that. It's not to say that the New York Times is not a trusted source when it comes to news, or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, because they do have people that are fact-checking, and they do have editors that are double-checking their copy to make sure that they're not being irresponsible in the way that they're reporting their news. However, it's not nearly as intensive as an academic who is publishing for the academic community. What happens when you're an academic and you want to publish to be a scholarly source is you submit your article. So let's say I've done research for the past 3 years on cereal boxes, and I've done all of my data collection, I've done all of my analysis, I have my findings, I've tied it into an existing conversation, I've done a well done review of the current literature around my topic, and I put it all together and I give it to a publisher. The publisher takes my name off of it and sends copies anywhere. It's usually 5, sometimes it's 3, but sometimes it's also up to 5 peers in my field. So other academics that have similar, if not better, credentials than me, that are currently publishing on the same type of topic. Those people receive my manuscript without a name. Those people, I will never know their names, so it's never a personality issue like, we're rivals, and so this person's going to be awful about my manuscript, because while of course personalities come into play in academics, and there is like some personal notoriety in terms of moving the conversation forward, in theory, in essence, it is about the greater good and pushing the conversation forward in general, not so much a personal thing. So all the names are removed. The reviewers get my manuscript. They give feedback. Their names are removed, and they go through my paper with a fine-tooth comb. They look at my methods. They look at my data collection. They look at my process. They look at my samples. They look at my review of literature. They look at everything that I've done, everything in its entirety, and at each particular point. They give extensive or not extensive feedback about what needs to be changed or anything else that needs to happen. The publisher then gives me all that feedback. I make those adjustments to my manuscript, and then it's ready to publish. The whole process can take time. It can take a year, 2 years. It's a lot of intellectual labor, both for the person writing the paper or people that are writing the paper, author or authors, as well as the reviewers. Reviewers are people that they're also publishing, they have jobs, they have other commitments, and yet they're doing this because it's important to have well-vetted, well-executed publications coming out on a particular topic to help keep it moving forward. Like, you don't want to be someone that uses, you don't want to be known as publishing, either being a publisher and publishing things that aren't well checked, or being the person that wasn't well checked and then publishes something and only to be embarrassed by things that are said about your article. So there's a reason that you, as a blossoming academic, should be relying solely on scholarly, peer-reviewed academic publications to frame your argument, because it's going to give you legitimacy and credibility that you're building upon the work of others that have been scrutinized to a pretty intensive degree. Okay, so that's why you can't use the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, People Magazine, Us Weekly, YouTube. None of these are acceptable sources when it comes to framing your conversation. All right, you might have one or two of those in addition, because maybe they gave you a really good understanding that you want to quote or paraphrase, or a working or definitions or something that's applicable in terms of like establishing that it's of some importance that other people are talking about it. But you have to have at least those 5 other credentialed sources that are going to help you in terms of your legitimacy and make your claims. So that's the importance to consider there. Don't hesitate to reach out to the UCF library chat. Those librarians are there to help you in any way that they can, so please make sure that you're considering that if you're having a hard time. Don't forget to find your workarounds. Try rephrasing, try thinking of different words that are related to your topic that might help you find those particular functions, or find those particular results. So there's a couple different things you can do to help you as you're searching for your scholarly sources. So let's say several hours in, or maybe it's the first one, I don't know, let's be optimistic. Let's say the first article you find is just perfect. It talks about your topic, kind of, it's related enough to your topic, it presents a good argument, there's some things in there that you can use. It's just like, wow, this is like a great article, this is really helpful for me in my research or my line of inquiry. First thing you do is you look at their works cited or referenced, depending if it's MLA or APA, and see what other sources they used. It's not cheating, it's not stealing. Again, the thought is we're all supposed to be moving this conversation forward, so not only am I giving you my sources so that you can check that I am legitimate in what I'm saying, but it's also so everyone is publishing to help move this thing forward, so using those sources is never a bad thing. So first thing you want to check is, what sources did your perfect article use, and are any of those applicable to the argument that you're trying to make? That's first thing you do. Second thing you would do is to typically when you're looking at an article on the UCF webpage, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen will give you like the name of the article, maybe, and the author, also the title of the publication. If you click on the title of the publication, it'll usually take you into a screen that gives you that particular issue, other issues that are done by that publication, and that would be another great place to look, because oftentimes academic journals will publish special topic issues, or just in general they arrange their issues based around a similar area of research or publication or specialty. So you might find other articles in the same issue of that particular publication, or look through other issues and see if there's anything else that's being published through that particular journal that might help you in terms of establishing a conversation. Because as academics, you start to have, it's like a niche in terms of your specialty that you're going to find. There's a bunch of people that are all publishing because they have this area of expertise, and there's a couple, maybe there's more than a couple, there's several publications that deal specifically with that topic. So it's good to look for those particular publications to find other articles that might be related to your conversation, because that's how academics works. Like, you're not going to find a magazine that's publishing typically an article about architecture next to an article about biology, next to an article about dental hygiene, next to an article about theater, next to an article about a book review, right? Like, that's not how publications work. So look into that particular publication title, look at that issue, look at other issues, and see if you can find anything else just there. And then finally, when you're on the library homepage, another place to try doing some searching by keywords. I'm pulling it up so I can see and I can reference it in real time. So if you're on just the regular library homepage and you see the quick search box where you can type search databases, articles, and catalog, let me tell you right now, you don't ever want to rely on just the quick search, because it doesn't give you everything that you need. Instead, you're going to be going in to look for either databases or online journals. Now, databases would be something like we're going to do in the library scavenger hunt, would be like JSTOR, InfoSec, EBSCOhost. It's almost like repositories for particular subjects or disciplines. And those are going to be the repositories based on if you're like a humanities-based researcher, medical, science, whatever it is. So you'll be using the databases, but also try clicking on that online journals button. And when the new window comes up with a search bar that you can type, try putting in some of your keywords there. You'd be amazed what comes up, that the list of publications that we have access to through our subscription services at the library, there are so many publications out there. If you type in something like social media, immediately I think 5 or 6 different journals that have social media in the title come up. So try typing in something like social media. Try typing in something like video games. Try typing in something like, I'm trying to think of some other ones. Vlogging, blogging, whatever it may be. Try doing some typing there as well as in your databases and see what comes up, and then again take those steps and look into the actual publications themselves as sources. So if you're having any problems trying to find your secondary sources by the end of this week, because really by the time you're done with the assignments this week, your focus for next week is going to be finding those sources so you can write your annotated bibliography and Carr's Model Introduction. The annotated bibliography is taking, I can't remember if I said this in the first lecture, I'm sorry. It's like creating a references or a works cited page and then having a summary. I did talk about this, now I remember, having those summaries. So like I said in this recording, research takes time. Make sure you're allowing yourself enough time to find those sources, because I'm going to promise you right now, you cannot write an annotated bibliography in a night. I'm going to take that back. You possibly could write an annotated bibliography in a night. It's going to be all night. It's not going to be good, and you're going to hate yourself for it. So please, give yourself the time, because I know with 6 weeks, time is one thing we don't have an abundance of. So just understand, this is where we are now. This is where we're going into next week, and whatever planning you need to do to accommodate that into your life, because I know that while it's lovely to think that you spend all of your time and all of your energy on this particular class, I know we all have lives outside of that and jobs and responsibilities. So make sure you're understanding that you're going to need to dedicate some time next week to finding and writing, which also can take time. So if you want to start working ahead this week and start finding those sources, feel free to do so. And in addition, if you have done all the things, you've spent some time, and you cannot find any sources, please let me know. You can either come to my office hours, my virtual office hours, or we can set up an appointment and I will screen share with you and I will help walk you through some searching that you might need to do and help you get on your way to finding some sources. So of course, as always, you have questions, please let me know. Also, please make sure that you are viewing the feedback that I'm providing in the rubric and in your papers when I release the grades for the genre analysis and research proposal this week. It's important that you see the feedback that I'm giving you to help correct you and steer you towards what you need to be doing working on your future projects. You can do that by going in when you're in web courses and you click on the assignment. I think it usually says some general comments there under your grade, but if you also click on the submission, like view submission, it'll bring up your paper. If I've written anything on the paper, I'll show you there. And I think that's also how you view the rubric with my feedback in the rubric. Okay? So, all right, I look forward to working with you this week. Happy researching, happy writing, and happy week 3.